Little Annie learns subtraction. Minus by me, Roseanne Moodley, Nee Ezra. Okay, this is basically helping you little ones that's starting grade 1, and as you progress in maybe grade 2, grade 3, to best understand subtraction. So, good day, boys and girls. We are back to watching and understanding how little Annie tackles subtraction or taking away. So we must think of subtraction as giving it away so that it is no longer yours. What remains will belong to you. It's like taking your some of your sweeties and giving it away maybe to a friend, maybe taking away a sandwich. You've got 2 sandwiches. You take away a sandwich and you give it to your friend. You're only left with 1 and your friend has 1. But if you add them both up, you'll find that suddenly it becomes 2. What have you had initially? You've had 2 sandwiches. You've given the 1 away, you're left with 1. So it's a hard thing to deal with, but when you begin to work with it and you begin to understand it, you'll find that it gets easier. You just got to look at what you have around you, especially in your play box, your toy box, maybe counters, ping pong balls, things like that, marbles. Very good thing to have, not to swallow, to have. And you use it wisely under supervision. Always make certain that when you're playing with these things that you're working and you're conscious of an adult playing around you or present around you, and just be very careful of these things, okay? So do you think that little Annie is going to find it easy to give away or share her treats? Let's see what happens, shall we? So we find little Annie has decided to go fishing. She sits by the river with her rod and tackle box, enjoying the day. Her grandmother decides to join her and sets up her rod next to little Annie. They both are quiet, restful people, and fishing is exactly suited to them. Something is happening in the river. Little Annie is good at fishing, but grandmother is not. Little Annie decides to help her grandmother. Good girl. Let's move on, shall we? The sum reads as follows. I'm trying to figure out the angle of this. 4 minus 1, or 4 subtract 1, or 4 take away or give away 1. You find there's an empty answer box there. Little Annie has 4 fish. You count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Grandma has no fish. Little Annie takes out 1 fish from her blue bucket and places it in grandmother's green bucket. Okay, immediately you see that there are 2 buckets there. There's a blue one and there's a green one. The blue one belongs to little Annie and the green one belongs to grandma. Little Annie has 4 fish in her blue bucket. And she does something. She takes out 1 fish and she places it in grandma's green bucket. Now you find that there's a cross over one of the fish. And that helps you to understand that you're taking it out of the bucket and you're moving it over to the other bucket, to grandma's bucket. Good children, aren't you? You find that I've put an arrow there to help you understand or make certain that you're moving the correct number of items into the other bucket. You find that there's 1 fish swimming happily now in grandma's bucket. Now you count the fish that's swimming in little Annie's blue bucket. You'll see there's 3. You count the one that's in grandma's bucket, there's 1. 3 plus 1 is 4. 4 minus 1 equals 3. So Annie, how many fish does little Annie have left in her blue bucket? little Annie has 3 fish left in her blue bucket because she's taken the one away and she's given it to Grandma. And that's why you find that the answer bucket there is actually blue, because we want to know what's happening with little Annie. In that little empty answer box, you can write in the number 3. Let's move on to the next slide, shall we? So the sum reads as follows. 6 minus 3 is equal to, and there's an empty answer box. Little Annie has 6 crabs. Now you can count the little soldiers there, the little crabs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All standing like little soldiers, aren't they? Grandma has nothing. I think Grandma is just so cool. She's so busy being cool that she has quite nothing. Little Annie takes out 3 crabs from her blue bucket and places it in Grandmother's green bucket. She's a good child. So you take the red cross, which means that you're crossing it out. Okay, it's like taking your pencil and you make a mark across it, like striking it out. Well, that's exactly what's happening. So you put that red cross over 3 crabs, because you've got to take 3 from little Annie's bucket and you've got to move it into Grandmother's green bucket. You find again these arrows. There are 3 arrows showing that there's a crab that's moved over, there's a second crab that's moved over, and there's a 3rd crab that's moved over. Now you look at the bucket and you'll find that in little Annie's blue bucket there's 3 crabs left swimming happily, and in Grandmother's green bucket there are 3 crabs swimming happily. If you add that, 3 plus 3 is equal to 6. Look at the first part of the question, 6. Okay, so now when she's taken it away and given 3 away to Grandmother from her 6, how many is she left with in her blue bucket? Well, let's count. 1, 2, 3. 3 crabs are swimming happily in the blue bucket without being given away. So the answer is 3. So in that empty answer box, you put in 3. Let's move on to the next sum. Okay, boys and girls? The sum reads as follows. 8 minus 5 is equal to, there's an empty space box. Now, for some strange reason, when I was just choosing random questions, the answer was just, always adding up to the same thing. But let's figure this out. We'll get to a different type of question later on. So little Annie has 8 ducks. Count the ducks that's standing there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Little Annie has 8 ducks. Grandma has nothing. So little Annie takes out 5 ducks from her blue bucket and places it in Grandmother's green bucket. So again, you take that red cross and you place it, or you take your pencil and you strike out those 5 ducks. Okay? Or you can take an eraser if you've drawn in pencil, and you simply erase it out, and you'll find that you're left with something, and then you've got to draw in the number that you've taken out. Okay, so if you've erased 5 oranges from the one piece of paper or the one little bucket or the one little box, you've got to draw 5 oranges on the other side so that you keep the sum, right before you can better understand it. I like working like this, or with the basket that we did yesterday, or your ice cream containers, because it helps you better understand the process of the method. If you get the method right, understand the method right at the beginning of school, you find that as you move to higher grades or bigger classrooms, you grow up, it gets much easier. You don't even have to work with those ice cream containers. You'll be able to just simply do it in your head. Okay, now you find that little Annie has given or taken out 5 ducks from her blue bucket, and she's given it to grandmother. She's put it in grandmother's green bucket. You find that she's taken and she's crossed out 5 ducks that were swimming in her blue bucket. You see there's 5 crosses, there's 5 arrows showing you that she's taken each one gently and she's placed it in the other. Now, how many ducks are flapping away happily in her blue bucket? Count them. 1, 2, 3. How many ducks are flapping away happily in grandmother's green bucket? Well, count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, you know that if you start counting from the blue, 1, 2, 3, and continue, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Look at the first part of the question. 8. Now, how many ducks does little Annie have left in her blue bucket? Little Annie has 3 ducks left in her blue bucket. That's the answer. So in that empty answer box, you put in a number 3. Let's move on to a different type of question. The sum reads as follows. 9 minus 2. And there's an empty answer box. Little Annie has 9 fish. Let's count the fish. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay? Grandma, very naughty grandma this is, has nothing. So little Annie takes out 2 fish. Why? Because you read the question, 9 subtract or 9 take away or 9 give away 2. You've got to give away 2. Okay? So little Annie takes out 2 fish from her blue bucket and places it in grandmother's green bucket. Again, you take your pencil or you take a red pen or you take a red crayon, whatever color, and you strike out 2 fish from the blue bucket. Because there's 9 fish in there. You've got to take away 2. You've got to give it over to grandmother or give it to grandmother. Now, how many fish does little Annie have left in her blue bucket? Little Annie has 7 fish left in her blue bucket. 9 subtract 2, 9 minus 2, or 9 give away 2 is equal to 7. The answer is 7. So in the little answer box, you can actually write in your answer or the number 7. Now, it's always best that you, when you're starting to learn, if you have one of those little chalkboards or those little slates that you have your piece of chalk, you can start drawing little circles or whatever. You start off with 9 circles. You cross off 2 circles and you find and you count what you're left with, and that becomes your answer. In order for you to understand if you've done it right, you take your answer, and where the equal sign is, you put in plus. So the answer plus 2, and you can check your answer, it should be 9. Okay, now the best way to do it with these little buckets is if you count here. The fish that's swimming in the blue bucket without being crossed out, without being switched over, you find them swimming happily, no crosses on them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you see the 2, 8, 9. And you'll find you can actually check your answer and make certain that you take your time. It's a process, but when you get it right, it becomes easy. Another method of being able to do this is if mommy has bought a pocket of potatoes. You got the pocket of potatoes there. You take 2 buckets, give yourself a question. Okay? In the 1 bucket, okay, you place 9 potatoes. You see the other bucket is standing empty. So from that bucket that has 9 potatoes, you take 2 potatoes from it and you place it into the other bucket. Okay? Then you take the bucket with the 2 potatoes and you put it far away from you. The one that's there with lots of potatoes left, or the one that you've taken the potatoes from, you count those that are remaining in there and you'll find that you should have 7 potatoes. To check your answer and make certain that you've done right, you run and you go fetch the other bucket with the 2 potatoes, and then 7 plus 2 is equal to 9. So the 9 potatoes you've taken from mommy's pocket of potatoes are standing there in that bucket, and you've got your answer. You can do it both ways, and you'll find that you will be fine as you progress and you get stronger and better in your learning. Be good, stay safe, and I pray very much that this has helped you. Use this method because it's quite a simple, interesting, colorful, entertaining method, and it helps you think a lot quicker. So, bye boys and girls.